we did loads of research on the dating apps for the book, and we found that mixed race people are the most fetishized people on the apps. 50% of mixed people reported being obviously fetishized or receiving microaggressions on the apps.
So the message that this guy sent me that is in the book is when I told him that I was mixed, and I was like, oh, you know, my dad is from Ghana, my mom's from the Philippines. And he was like, oh, that's ideal. He was like, mixed people are the future of our species.
Okay, Charles Darwin.
No, and I was like, are you gonna cut me up?
No,
Like,
not the F word.
Yeah.
Not the David Attenborough.
Not species.
No.
Not even human race.
Saying that's ideal.
Yeah, ideal. I was like, there's so many. What? That's it was like, are you gonna dissect me in a lab? Like, I'm scared. Hi everybody, welcome to Eastern Hunnies. Wow! As you may see, there's not 3 people on this table. There are 4. What the hell? I am gagged. I am blessed. It's been a minute. Welcome, Mixed Up.
Welcome, Mixed Up to the pod. We have with us Emma and Nicole, and we will dive right into their professional bios before getting into the personal. So, meet Emma Slade Edmondson and Nicole Okran, co-creators of the award-winning Mixed Up podcast and authors of the book The Half of It. Plug.
That was not rehearsed.
That was not rehearsed. I love it. Both these platforms discuss race, identity, and belonging from the mixed race perspective. Since 2020, Mixed Up has revolutionized conversations around cultural identity, together interviewing the likes of Sinead Harnett, Melissa Hemsley, Asia Jackson, Mel B, Anton Ferdinand, and Tessa Thompson. They were also a huge inspiration for us starting a podcast.
Oh, beyond the pod world, Emma is a writer, TEDx speaker, Forbes 100 environmentalist and changemaker with more than 15 years of experience. She recently launched Good Form, a strategic marketing agency that works with conscious brands, which she actually co-founded with none other than Melissa right here. She also facilitates Sisters in Sustainability, a collective of global majority women, including me. It's so
Spider-Man.
Few smiles here.
Each working towards a more sustainable future. Emma's next book will be a children's book to be published with Pan Macmillan in 2026. Amazing.
So Nicole Okran, who graced us with her presence in season 1, is a Ghanaian Filipino author, journalist, podcaster, and fashion influencer who's been sharing her personal style and life online for over a decade. Born in Virginia, now living in London, Nicole also co-founded the Creator Union, a union campaigning for fair pay for digital creatives and influencers. Nicole's recently launched her new weekly Substack called A Crumb of Romance, taking a look at love and romance in all its forms. Emma and Nicole, welcome to Eastern Hunnies.
Thank you for having us. Wow. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so hyped.
I can't lie, I was really jealous when you...
It was weird to come to here.
I was yeah. Especially because I'm so closely tied to both of you.
Yeah.
I was so, a bit left out.
Actually, like, origin story, I was Emma's assistant way back when. Cold emailed her on Google. I was like, sustainability stylist, people of color, women of color. And Emma popped up, slid into your inbox.
Here we are.
Like, yeah.
How
many years later?
And years later, literally, it was in my 20s, like early 20s when I...
Wow.
Yeah.
So nice.
She's not 20.
Okay, there. Okay.
Tricky.
No, I can't remember my age yet, so let's move on from this now.
Oh God. So Nicole, you've been here before, and Emma, you are an honorary Filipino. Before camera, like off camera, we were wondering about how you innately knew what Slasian meant.
Yeah. She said, I was like, yeah, of course.
And you're an honorary Filipino, obs. Please, can you both introduce yourself and how you both identify culturally and heritage-wise?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. I guess I always mix it up a little bit. I think I'll often start by saying that I'm American first. I think, especially because I've lived in London now for such a long time, I feel like it's something that people will notice right away. But I definitely will tell people that I'm Ghanaian and Filipino. I don't that often say that I'm mixed, I think, out loud, unless I'm kind of like writing it to describe something. But I make a real point to be specific about being Ghanaian and Filipino just because it just means a lot to me, I think. But yeah, I feel like culturally I'm definitely American, but have rooted now in London so much that I feel like I can claim being a Londoner. And I'm getting my citizenship next month.
Whoa.
Okay, efficiently.
Yeah.
And I feel like after the, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, but it was like Keith Lee, who's like one of the big, like US TikTok food reviewers, like came over and was like reviewing a bunch of different dishes. Have you seen that?
I did see this.
And it was like everybody was like up in arms, like being really nationalistic. And I was like in the background, like, yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm with you in spirit. So yeah, I feel like that's me in a nutshell.
British girl.
Yeah.
British girl. We'll discuss how you feel about that later.
Yeah, exactly. I do have to swear allegiance to King Charles. So that,
Sorry.
Sorry, King Charles and all of his, what's the word?
Like descendants?
Descendants, yeah.
This is intense. Wow.
Very weird.
Yeah. All of the words.
All of the words. And I was just like reading my little email like, oh, okay. And I was like, are there other options? No.
No, there aren't.
There aren't. You can swear to God or not. And those are the two options you get.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Cool. Emma. So, I am Jamaican, Black, British. I also have Cornish ancestry, German, Swiss ancestry. Mm-hmm. I feel like, it was only since we started our podcast that people started asking how, it was the first time I ever was asked how I identify or how I describe myself, to be honest, in the podcast. And I'll never forget Asia Jackson. She came on, incredible. She came on and she was like, listen, girls. She's like, how about this? I identify as mixed and Black. And I don't like using anything as like a single identifier because I don't think that really means anything. And she was like, yeah, she's basically just like really clear. And I feel like that was the first time that I felt like I had license to broaden the way that I speak about myself. It was really formative, actually. Like, I'll never forget that moment because it was like an aha moment, which sounds really silly now because I feel like since 2020, when we started, we have come a lot further. Yeah. But then again, in 2020, when the Black Lives Matter resurgence happened, everyone was asking, I think, for an either or. Like, it was always expected, like, are you going to say that you're mixed or are you going to say that you're Black?
Whoa.
Yeah. It's really a loaded question.
I think people still have that expectation now. I think it's not as explicit maybe then, but I think it does. I think it says a lot about you to say either or lick something. But I guess I think that's always been our experience, is that we've always felt like we've been forced to choose one or the other, or choose one thing at a time. And yeah, to what Emma was saying about speaking with Asia, where she was just so simply being like, I get to be both these things at the same time, or I get to be multiple things at once. It was just no one had ever been so boldly like, this is where I draw my line in the sand about my identity. So yeah.
It's really liberating to hear someone claim that.
Yeah.
And then it gives you the license to do the same.
And yeah, and so I've really taken that to heart, and I genuinely feel like I can recognize the things that I get like from my heritage. Like I feel like Jamaicans are so tenacious. Like they basically like take anything, any opportunity that they're given and like make it into something that is so me. Jamaicans are also always talented. So just, saying. And like then like also my Cornish ancestry, like I'm basically descendant from a woman called Jane Slade, who was like, I think the first ship builder's yard owner, back in the Victorian times. And so she was like this really tenacious kind of Victorian woman who was just like owning her own thing at the time when you weren't actually allowed to have anything as a woman or like further anything, just like shipping her fruits across the world.
That's so
and I feel like like I definitely I'm a seafarer for sure.
I mean, you are
it makes sense.
But so like I feel like I'm this experience of doing the podcast has really given me license in so many ways to kind of claim and own lots of the parts of my heritage and who I am.
I love that. And I really resonate because as a mixed person, mixed up was so pivotal for me as I started going on this journey to really understand that part of my identity. It mixed up gave me the tools and the vocabulary and the insights from a mixed community that I otherwise wouldn't have had. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I know.
Not so early.
Like we can't do this now.
Not now. It's been 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's been 5 minutes.
time earlier.
Just saying.
So on that note, touching on the things you've learned about cultural identity, what did actually going in and writing your book, the half of it, teach you about cultural identity beyond the podcast? Because we really appreciated your intersectional lens. You covered every culture, every country, covered so many more stories than just your own personal experience, which is so great. So like what were the main insights you got?
Do you know what? It's really tough to answer that question because we spent 5 years writing that book. So, there's just so much in it. We did so much research. And I think for me, the medium gave me an opportunity to really dig into research, history, things that like you can only really touch upon in a podcast format when you're speaking to people.
Kind of to what you were saying about being able to touch on so many other different people's points of view. I think that's always been key for us since the beginning of starting the podcast and when we were going into this book. And I think we faced so much pushback from every angle in terms of what people were interested in knowing, what was too niche, what didn't resonate with readers, and the thing
what it was assumed would resonate.
What was assumed wouldn't resonate with readers is that's the key phrase there. And I just remember one of our events that we had, I always want to say it's the Person Library, but it was in Dulwich. What library? Carnegie Library.
Yeah.
Carnegie Library in Herne Hill, when we were just met with a room full of so many different faces, so many different ages, people from all kinds of backgrounds, interracial couples, people who were in their like 80s, who had never spoken about this topic before. And I think that's, it's not specific to the book, but it's just been the main thing for me in terms of understanding how wide reaching the topic is, no matter what we're told, I think, especially when, growing up, we didn't have books like this when I read. So that was the thing for me where I was just like, okay, I feel like as many moments where I've been like, this has been really hard, that made it worth it.
I think also just to add to that, there were so many things that we knew were kind of like these really rich and interesting subject matters. And with the podcast, our format is very much, we'll have somebody on and then we can kind of get into the topic as it relates to the person.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously you can't possibly, like the amount of stories there are when it comes to the mixed race experience, you can't possibly find somebody for each story in the time that we've had. Like, you'd basically be doing this podcast for like 100 years. But people don't realize that because they don't really realize, I think, how much history there is in regards to the mixed race experience.
Yeah.
And so I think this gave us an opportunity also to explore some of those things, you know, to explore, you know, what's going on in Hawaii when it comes to kind of land and not being able to inherit if, you know, you're deemed to not be enough, like Hawaiian enough, basically from blood quantum.
Yeah.
And how that affects, you know, the continuation of like the
Cultural bloodline as well.
Or, you know, digging more into what happened to the Métis in the Congo, and, you know, these things that we couldn't necessarily approach in such a kind of deep way on the podcast because of the format. I think it gave us a real opportunity to get into that.
Just on that, I feel like the further back you go to untangle mixed identity or even colonized identity, it's like, oh, violence, bloodshed, pain, supremacy. And these things can't be spoken about without that context.
Yeah.
And it's often very painful.
Yeah.
Like, I was at one of your Herne Hill talks, and like, it is really, when you open up to the Q&A and there's a 60-year-old man who's like on the mic verbalizing something about his identity he's never done before, that's very difficult to hold in that moment and like gently, diplomatically address in a public forum when it's their first time verbalizing that.
It's tough. It's really, really tough. And, you know, it is, as I'm sure you're learning.
We are where this is going. Hey, we can relate.
Sometimes it's like truly a journey for yourself. You know, like you're holding space for people at the same time as holding space for yourself
And each other.
learning and growing in your understanding of like where maybe some of your trauma comes from. You know, I don't want to overuse the word trauma because I feel like it's kind of is a bit overused. However,
It is trauma though.
it is apt in this particular example. And so, yeah.
So in the interest of keeping things light, Asian guy gets a girl and is a romantic hero. And there are so many examples of this in like Hollywood nowadays.
Yeah.
I.e. Mindy Kaling's Ever Have I Ever?
Shout out Tax.
Yeah. Shout out Paxton. I've got a show.
Paxton on here.
There's a sequel.
Yeah.
But like, I think I was watching basically a YouTube video on this, like way back when, about the rise of the Asian himbo. And, you know, so today we've got like Henry Golding, Manny Jacinto, Jason Wong, friend of the pod,
Stina Jans, Andrew Koji, all these
Andrew Coach.
hot Slasians. Yes. So many.
Yeah.
so many hot Slasians. I can't concentrate.
I literally
I went somewhere else.
Spiritually. As Asians who grow up in the UK, and it's been honestly wild seeing the Asian man turn into a figure of like hotness and a figure of like global sexiness. Can you share some of your findings about how Asian people have been portrayed in the media? Question to both of you.
Yeah, I feel like, so we did a whole chapter in the book on dating, interracial dating, and relationships. And I think that was one of the most interesting chapters to research and write. And to be honest, people of colour did not fare well.
No.
You didn't.
We can't keep it like
Exactly. I was like, unfortunately, across the board.
And like, we'll get into the actual science of what's going on in terms of the technology with that. Like, we will get onto that.
Yeah.
But obviously we wanted to look at the history of like where this is coming from as well, because obviously the kind of stereotypes and the ideas that people act on apps come from somewhere. They come from they come from colonization. They come from white supremacy. I'm sorry, it was only 2 seconds, but like,
Never apologize.
yeah,
for speaking the truth.
literally, like, there's no way around it, everybody. Like, we have to get into it. But yeah, so basically, there were stats around that we found basically in our research around the apps where you could see that, for example, like 90% of non-Asian women would set their preferences to exclude Asian men. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like I said,
I'd be interested to see how this has changed maybe more recently.
That's what I'm saying.
Because
all of
what we were talking about. Since everyone wants a Korean boyfriend and now.
Yeah. You're like,
but I think during that, that research was was it 2022 maybe? Even 2020.
Yeah. I mean, the last research that we referenced in the book was 2022, and that was possibly even more disturbing, but this was in relation to, I think, American white women.
Yeah.
They would need an Asian man to be earning £200,000 more than their white counterpart to consider dating them. This was like the study done by a university. And so, yeah, essentially
How do you even ask that question? Were they like the scientists were like to a group of like white women, like what is your like dating score rank and like fucking like wild?
Probably. Because actually when you get into it, we did this episode with April Williams, and she's done a whole PhD where she studied the algorithms of, so she studied the patents on the algorithms for the dating apps. And what she found was really sinister. So let's hold on to our
paper hats. Yeah.
Let's hold on to our souls as we go at this right. But essentially what she found was the apps are matching on sameness. They basically, she calls it automated eugenics.
Whoa, what a term.
Yeah, exactly. Because whilst that doesn't sound quite so sinister just on the surface level, it's matching you on so it's deciding what class you are. It's deciding based on geography, based on all this information it aggregates for you. It decides what class you are, and then it will only match you with somebody it considers to be in your same class. It decides what race you are, and then it will only match you with somebody who's considered to be of your race. It decides on your age, things like that.
Yeah, but it knows you're and obviously because in the apps you can also put what job you have.
Yeah.
So if you're freelance, they're like, you're a broke bitch. Here are all the other broke bitches that we think you're worthy of going out with. Likewise, if you're a doctor or an engineer or whatever. But yeah, like April was saying in her research, it awards you this kind of
status.
Yeah, like a compatibility score. We all have, the way that people talk about one another, if they're a 10 or a 5 or whatever, it's kind of the same thing that the algorithm is doing. And that each user of a dating app has this kind of score, and you are ranked against one another in that way. And so, of course, the more you use the app and the more that your own, I guess, personal preferences and biases play out as a user, that's what you get served, and that's who you end up seeing. Likewise, depending on where you are geographically in London, let's say, those are the people that you end up seeing, right? People who they think are the same enough to you, that you should be going out with. And what we talk about in that episode is how unfair it is to market an app to people thinking that this is going to open up your entire world. Like, you have access to, so many different people. You have all this choice, but actually these are the choices we're making for you and we're not telling you about it. And so
proliferation.
yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, you think you're in this totally, like we're all in this kind of like free marketplace. No, we're not. Like, yeah.
It's literally, you get a rating. So like, for example, like Nicole was saying, like, if I'm a 5, I can't match with you if you're a 10. Unless I pay on some. Yeah, which again, like, let's reinforce class, let's reinforce
yeah, it's really hard in American society.
It is.
Whoa,
It really
exactly.
is.
And I think that, like, that's just to take it back to what I was saying about like the history that we looked into, because it's reinforcing the biases and the discrimination and like the racism essentially that is already within society, that comes from history, that comes from colonization, that comes from all of these things that have, you know, been purposefully done. It's very hard to get out of the cycle, because at the end of the day, who's making the apps?
Yeah.
My partner was telling me a friend of his is Korean and downloaded this dating app in Korea. And what it does is it gives you literally 3 seconds to swipe on whether or not you like someone.
I think I saw this on TikTok.
Immediate face value.
Very.
But then what it does is it automatically ranks you out of your entire neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it's like you are 175th most attractive in your neighborhood. And then on each individual profile, people vote their favorite part of you. So it's like 57% of you think your eyes are great. And it's just such a like a weird molecular boiling down of like attractiveness to physical traits.
I don't need to know any of the information.
I don't need to know about my neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. Specific. It's like very like some of the, like, what's going on?
Like, why?
Dissection.
Who needs to know about the nose?
I just think,
And also, what makes you more compatible with someone who has a different shape eye or different size nose?
Exactly.
It's nothing to do with the compatibility.
It's complete vanity metric. Yeah.
And so it is just like, so what are we meant to do with all of that?
Apart from destroy myself.
Apart from destroy our self-esteem, spend more money on trying to fix these things about ourselves, apparently. And then to what? And it's still the same lie that, you know, how we look is somehow going to be an indicator of the way that we find love or the way that we find our person, or, you know, whatever it is that we might be looking for. But yeah.
So speaking of dating apps, aka the trenches, Emma, bless your bottom dollar, you've never had to be on one, right? She's married. She's so happy. So
I'm even wishing I were so guys.
Iz and I both met partners on apps. Nicole, your new project is A Crumb of Romance. So please, can you?
Sorry, I'm literally out here like, please.
Okay, all of the kids.
That little fox meme, like, please.
Please share your experience as a mixed individual or Ghanaian Filipino in these apps, and also what inspired A Crumb of Romance.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think my experience of using dating apps, I think, has been, when I first downloaded them, I think I had the same experience as everyone else, being like, ooh, exciting. This is a whole new world that's opened up to me. Because likewise, I was the same. I was in long-term relationships for like so many years. And I think the last time I even knew what a dating app was, I think only Tinder had just like come on the scene. So this is like decades later. But using them now, it's very, you get burnt out really quickly. Again, this idea of lots of different choice, conversations that kind of end up going nowhere. I think people in general are just overall fatigued as users. I think where the things I've seen personally as a mixed person have been just wild stuff that people are just coming out with right away on their profiles, like no coloreds, no ethnic.
What?
This is a man that tried to match with me, has written it out.
1700.
Right. I was just like, not no bucks, no dogs, no either. What's going on? Yeah, exactly right. I was like, what's happening?
I feel like I've got a rash.
Yeah.
I feel uncomfortable.
So it's like something that's like on that end of the spectrum, and then I'll be talking to someone, and I wrote this in the book where I'm speaking to this guy, and it comes up that I'm mixed because, again, I think that kind of curiosity, I think, always comes out with some people, which I always find really interesting. I used to be more explicit about it in my profile, and now I don't make reference to being mixed at all. Because
I know the stats.
Because I know the stats, and because I know, actually, yes, because
Share
of
the
stats. I mean, because I know that putting your ethnicity or putting your heritage on your profile will rank you in a particular way. Because I know that I took it out, and noticed the difference. Not only that, so I'm talking about Hinge in particular. It's on the site for Hinge.
Yeah.
But I know this for Hinge in particular, in that when I even changed my ethnicity to white just to see what would happen.
Where?
Because I saw, again, on TikTok, a few Black women in particular were doing this, and I was like, there's no way they would be so blatantly obvious about this. I was like, surely not. Sure enough, soon as I changed it, different matches, different men.
Oh my God.
Of all races. Of all races.
No more uncles.
And no more uncles.
Like, sorry, I shouldn't.
And it was, but it's true.
I know too much.
Yeah.
Just too much
But it's
power.
true. And so I was like, okay, that's really freaky. I've obviously since changed it, but now, because I know that, I don't make reference to it. One time I also had a guy speak to me in Twi, a white man speak to me in Twi. And I was like, I'm scared. Because I had it written in my bio that I was going to in Filipino.
So using a translator?
I don't know. Oh
my God,
I
did Is that really bad of me? Maybe
it was, yeah, but it was giving that. And I was just like, I don't like, with no other context. Like, it wasn't like, my best friend is going to, so I don't know, something.
Yeah, the stats. Do you want to put on the stats?
Yeah, so obviously we did loads of research on the dating apps for the book, and we found that mixed race people are the most fetishized people on the app. 50% of mixed people reported being obviously fetishized or receiving microaggressions on the apps.
So the message that this guy sent me that is in the book is something to the effect of, when I told him that I was mixed, and I was like, oh, my dad is from Ghana, my mom's from the Philippines. And he was like, oh, that's ideal. He was like, mixed people are the future of our species.
Okay, Charles Darwin.
No, and I was like,
are you gonna cut me up?
No, not the F word. Not the David Attenborough.
Not species.
Oh, no.
Not even human race.
Saying that's ideal.
Yeah, ideal. I was like, there's so many. What? It was like, are you gonna dissect me in a lab? Like, I'm scared. What's going on?
Do you know what, like, interesting that you say that, because like another catchphrase of like Eastern Hunnies was like, intention does not negate impact.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing his intention maybe behind it was to be like,
To
I
flatter.
see you. Yeah. I'm an ally.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know. It's just like the tone in which it's delivered. And also like, read the room. Like, I don't know.
I think so many people who've tried to have that kind of conversation with me or make reference to my race and ethnicity have always fallen short.
Right. Yeah.
And which is why I stopped. That's why I don't have it in my profile.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's really generous of you, like a generous take, because
Very,
I mean,
generous.
It's really hard, like once you like know the history of things. So something, I'm going to misquote her, but Bell Hooks said something about how the Black woman's body is like forever damaged by colonization, and people's view of it is forever damaged. And like, we won't get into like, all the layers of how that's the case, but it's pretty much this, like, it's not to say it's forever damage, but like these stereotypes, these ideas that people have in their heads about who we are, if we're Black, if we're Asian, if we're an Asian man, an Asian woman, a mixed woman, like, you know, they come from really like deeply rooted stories that have been told about us over and over again. Like the mixed race situation on the apps comes from the tragic mulatto trope, this idea that we're, you know, promiscuous, available, but also kind of like ambiguous. So it's hard to kind of pin anyone down for doing something to us.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this idea that we're available that has permeated like into the modern day. And I think, you know, those things are really dangerous. Even some of those, we know that some of those stereotypes around Asian men that hopefully are kind of being diluted by the stuff that you were talking about, like in film and TV and media now, that kind of positions Asian men as the hero, the romantic interest. But we know that some of these tropes that are around emasculation go right back to like the 1920s, for example, in America, when East Asian men were emigrating to America and they weren't permitted to do certain types of labor. So there was a lot of work that was considered traditionally to be feminine that those men might have taken up. They also were barred from marrying outside of their race. And so, you know, that created certain environments that meant, because there were like less Asian women in society at that time, the society that they were in, they weren't necessarily able to like forge those relationships. And there's like these flashpoints that you can point to again and again in history where it's political, and these kind of stories are told and they get into the psyche.
It's so interesting because narratives of Black and Asian hostility are rooted in stereotypes and immigration policies. And like white supremacy has always tried to pit the communities against each other, but like that's on purpose. But after COVID and the murder of George Floyd, it feels like both of the communities really show up for each other. And like we always have done. But I think like after that, it was double. It was more. What are the cultural overlaps you've noticed between Asian and Black communities in music, film, and fashion?
Everywhere, if you look, like there's always appreciation between like particularly East Asians and Black creatives and community. Like even if you look at like Blaxploitation era films, like there's so much reference to kind of to kung fu and like other East Asian elements, fashion. And I think there's been like for a very long time, not just an appreciation in the arts, to be honest, but, you know, like there has been like a crossover and an influence even in regards to like activism and
for sure. And that was the thing. I think, you know, I was so I don't know, it's hard to hear when, you know, there are moments of like maybe brushing up against each other or feeling like, you know, there can only be one, for example, because like you said, there are so many moments in history where there is just a coming together. There's so much, there's so much community there. There's so much that like, you know, a lot of like, for example, like Yellow Peril meets Black Power, like that kind of thing has just been like, it's like rooted in our activism work. It's rooted in our community work. It's like, I don't know. I think because
allyship.
It's always been there. And so, I find it really hard when people say that like, you know, there is like this model minority myth or there can only be one of us, you know, at a time, or like this kind of thing. So
even when the US tried to occupy the Philippines, the African American troops looked around and said, I don't fuck with trying to make another colonial empire. And they defected and helped the Filipino troops. There's a long history of allyship and trying to, and coming together. And it's that like game recognized game thing. Culturally, I think that is really important to acknowledge. In terms of something that you talked about in the half of it, I think it was Ryan Alexander Holmes who really broke this down, because he identifies as an African-American Chinese man, which again, beautifully specific. and radical in its own way. What are your feelings on these like conceptual ideas of blackness and Asianness? And do you think these terms like limit?
Really breathe. I was like,
Do you think
How long have you got?
I know.
how does that like limit our cross-cultural or inter-community understandings of one another by having these nesses?
Sorry, I'd be really interested to know from you, like, even if we just take it back to like appreciation or appropriation and like those crossover things that we were talking about, like, how do you feel about when you see things that you feel are like possibly not black?
Nicki Minaj doing Chun-Li.
Yeah, I'm so
Like,
conflicted.
where's the kind of line for you, and what, you know?
It's really hard because, for example, in like California, in the Bay Area, Filipinos were imported by the boatload. There are huge Filipino, Vietnamese, Korean communities in California, and they were there right alongside, in historically black neighborhoods. And so they adopted a lot of vernacular and music and fashion and style and, shout out to the Swagapino. That's really where it all began.
To my public is back in San Diego. Honestly, I see you.
And it's like, I think this is a whole other podcast topic, but the Filipino specifically has so long like been untethered in its identity that there is an ability to assimilate and accommodate and have fun in and take parts of cultures that we love. And so we know there's a whole discourse around that, like, why are Asians acting black? But it's like,
we've had comments as well on Eastern Hunnies about that.
We had an Asian rapper, shout out James Kaiwei Lau.
Oh yeah.
And they were like, why are you doing up like rap when you're Asian?
But again, like, even if you look at hip hop, there's been for a long time this kind of like sharing, collaborating, like within that music scene.
It's not the whole point of it.
And it is, like you said, about communities. Like, for example, in New York, I'm pretty sure that there was like a huge East Asian community and, living alongside black hip hop artists who were then taking on, elements of things that they'd seen like through film and like, but it's just like
where they grew up and when they went to school.
And like, it's always been this kind of
cultural exchange.
And thank you for giving me the word as I was miming it. I was like, who's gonna
alchemy?
But yeah, so I feel like I think it's a bit narrow to just kind of go, okay, appropriation, like right off the bat. And even like, I keep seeing the algorithm keeps serving me basically East Asian men dancing to Kendrick's.
Oh yeah, I've been seeing it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean,
but Kendrick had Kung Fu Kenny. And so
and again, like, so key to where he grew up.
So key.
And where all of them are grown.
Context matters. So, for example, I brought this up and Kai Wei was like, yeah, but it's coming from a place where Kendrick really respects Asian culture. And I was like, but for me, someone who doesn't know that, being at Kendrick's concert and seeing him plow through miscellaneous, disposable Asian men because he's Kung Fu Kenny makes me feel some type of way about seeing my Asian brothers being kicked off to the side. Same with like Brad Pitt one punching Bruce Lee in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Same with just, again, we were having this chat in another episode, all these like mysterious, sinister Yakuza guys with sunglasses whose backstories we never hear about, who just like fight and die. And it's just like, to what extent do we all play into tropes, and to what extent like just optics versus there's context buried behind there?
I honestly think it's literally just, again, my catchphrase of my life, which is like, can we all not just like be kinder to one another?
No, I get it. It's all context and nuance, like conversations. And I think that's why it's so key to actually have cross conversations and ask those questions. Like, how do you feel about it? Like, even sometimes when like I watch Keanu and he is like basically beating these people who are like literally famous fighters. And I'm like, oh, this is a bit weird actually, because like, that's not like, you know, that's not making sense to me. But at the same time, you know, you have to suspend disbelief for the whole entire thing anyway. So it's kind of like, but yeah, I don't know. It's layered.
It is layered.
It is. And I do think as mixed people, it's a conversation we are so like at the intersection of, because it is that feeling of like, what kind of space you're allowed to take up? What are you taking from, you know, X? What are you taking from Y? You know, is this allowed? Is it not? And I don't know. I mean, again, not to harp on about the other terrible app, Twitter. I will not be calling it X. But there was another conversation about this where there was a mixed girl wanting to take part in, I think, a competition for Black gamers. And now, as a caveat, I still don't really know the full story of this, but it then essentially came out that she's actually not mixed Black. I think she's mixed Asian. I think her dad might be Indian or something. But she, you know, in the time that this was unfolding, you know, everyone is very like, she's not Black, she's mixed, you know. She presents as white, and so she's never had the experience of a Black person, and that is what it means to be Black, and that is what allows you to take part in this gaming competition, for example. Like, that's what causes, I think, conversations like this, and what causes people to be so much more closed off in, you know, what we can allow for mixed people, because we've had people blatantly cosplay as mixed people. What I found interesting about the conversation people were having was like, she is never, she doesn't know what it means to experience racism, and therefore she isn't Black. And that's what I found really interesting, kind of like to your question earlier, which is like, you know, what are the parameters in which we view our racial identities, and why is it only, based in oppression, based in what white people see when they look at us, and why, and who is allowed to take up space in that way. So yeah, that was what made me think of that, but I don't know that I have the answers. And obviously that scenario is a bit fuzzy with the details in terms of, these mixed people, but yeah, I just found that really quite sad.
I do want to caveat though. I do think, I believe it is important for us to have spaces where we feel like comfortable, seen, and like we can express difficult, challenging experiences and be understood.
For sure.
I do think that's important. So I think that we should protect the idea that it's okay to say, you know, I'm actually saving this thing for this particular community. And I want this community to feel like they can come and it will be an exchange within our community. Yeah. But like you said, like when people like purposefully cosplay it as something that they know full well that they're not in order to gain access, that is disturbing and disturbing, harmful.
Scary. I didn't want to bring this up, but Ollie London, I first saw them pop up on This Morning or Sunday Brunch TV or something. White English man who was like, I was born to be Korean, but I'm just trapped in this English man's body. Got obsessed with the BTS member Jimin, is it? And underwent multiple surgeries to get Korean eyelids, nose job, all the things, and was basically cosplaying as Korean, and was trying to make out that it was this like profound transracial identity thing. And I mean, having touched base on Ollie London just to see where the crazy was at, now he's conveniently gone back to just being a white person, a white Brit.
Yeah.
And there's no
conservative.
Right. And like right wing.
Oh my God.
And
How interesting.
really, when I watched this individual, obviously no idea what they're going through, but it's like, I felt sick.
Yeah.
I felt so disturbed. And I felt, I guess it's like what people experience when you see blackface. This is like yellow face at its utmost pushed into, can you just become Korean because you have a few eyelid transplants?
Yeah.
It's just so jarring that also Britain gives platforms to people like this on television.
It's giving look at this freak show type of thing. I think that happens a lot. It's happened a lot, I think, in his, not to bring it back to here we go. But like it's happened so much in our history in terms of look at them. Like what's wrong with them? There's something clearly mentally wrong with them that then now it becomes a thing where all mixed people are kind of painted with this brush. It's a bit like the lines would become so blurred with these kinds of almost really viral stories of people like Rachel Dolezal, for example, like Ollie London, for example, who do these kind of like really strange things where you have people who are, legitimately questioning their identity or, are seeking ways in which to feel more connected in these like really legitimate ways that then it makes them feel like there's something wrong with them because these are the examples that they see.
I think the issue with people like Ollie London and Rachel Dolezal, to your point, is that people associate them with the idea of being mixed because of how they present themselves. Rachel Dolezal, for example, with the fake tan,
Right.
black power hoops, fro, the braids, like all of these things that she used to signal that she was, that she had black heritage. But people don't really have, speaking to Ryan Alexander, lots of reference frame points for the huge spectrum of like what mixed people look like. They just think mixed people look like, basically light-skinned people who have curly hair, usually maybe not quite my texture, but and then it's like, oh, that's a mixed person.
Yeah.
So these kind of
That's so true.
aesthetic changes that these people are doing to themselves, which are like subtle enough for people to question, like, oh, maybe you're not white, are kind of enough to signal, and they know what they're doing, that they're mixed or ambiguous, as people like to say.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it becomes problematic for mixed people, because we have a legitimate conversation about the fluidity of identity and not the fluidity of race, which obviously doesn't actually exist, but the fluidity of identity and like how we express that identity and how it flexes in regards to like our cultural positioning and expression of ourselves. And also the experiences that unfortunately we have had, in regards to oppression and racism and all of these things, and how we interact with our communities because of it. And that's a conversation that we started having with the podcast and then like continued with the book. But when we started having it, it was pretty radical, to be honest. I feel like other than academic journals, no one was really talking about it because it's uncomfortable for people. I still think like there's some people that feel, and there's some validity in this, particularly we had this conversation on another podcast. We're always on podcasts. But it was like about how darker skinned women might feel some kind of way that we're like, okay, well, we flex in our identity because it's just like who we are.
Innate.
Yeah. And, I get that, because if you don't get to flex in your identity and actually like you experience oppression because of that, it's difficult to hear that somebody else legitimately flexes in their identity, and it's not disingenuous. It's not, pretending to be something you're not. It's just that,
Yeah, it's just how it is. I think
and it's also hard to hear, I think, because people think you're comparing the two experiences as though they're the same. It's never been what we've been trying to say in doing this podcast and you know, and writing the book and any of those things. But again, you know, going back to this story about this woman, what often ends up happening in these kind of Twitter discourses about mixed race people or biracials or, you know, whatever, is that people are always like, well, if you want to be accepted so badly, like, why don't you just go be accepted by white people? Again, the assumption is always that you're mixed black and white. And pick a race, essentially. Yeah, exactly. And so they're like, oh, why are you always crying to us about how rejected you are? If you feel so rejected by us black people, you know, go find your comfort with the white community, which I find so sad. Like it's so, like, to what you're saying, it's so unkind. And I also think really disingenuous to not understand what it feels like to be rejected by, you know, this part of you. And I think especially if you are someone who feels like, you know, you're white passing or white presenting, or, you know, you're looking for that kinship and community outside of white people, or whatever the case may be. Like, I could see how you're walking around feeling like there is that part missing, and wanting to bring that bit closer to you. And it's often something that goes so dismissed, I think, by people online who don't really understand, what that would feel like.
I wanted to briefly touch on this idea of like misinterpreting things and the damage left behind by, again, like other people's perceptions or mainstream media and things like that. And going back to your book, you had a section about video games and representation of mixed individuals, and also Asian and mixed Asian individuals. And for me, that was a really hard read, because it's like, for example, one game based on the Vietnam War, you have all these gooks, like disposable Vietnamese men that you're shooting at for hours on end. And then like the occasional whore or concubine woman's thrown in, again, a disposable fetishized body, and the ongoing exposure to that and the trail of damage it leaves behind in like the collective psyche. And so can you share just some of your findings about how mixed people are represented in popular media like video games, and how it might exacerbate these stereotypes and you know, like across all races even?
So that bit specifically, actually, it was really hard to write as well and to research, because I think as well, this is something that we all need to do better, is understand each other's historical
context.
I found it was like so enlightening for me to do the research on that, and then to like, especially to think about it in the context of video games, because it's such a kind of like,
it's fun.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun, like entertaining, you know,
how people switch off.
Debug. Escapism. Imagine escapism is like, But it was difficult to kind of really face the idea that, so the game that you're talking about was set in the Vietnam War, and basically it's obviously an American made game, and there are no, like, all the, let's say, bad guys are obviously Vietnamese men. And so there was this academic who was talking about how he did an exercise of playing this game for hours straight, so that he could examine like how it affected him as a Vietnamese man and his psyche and how he felt about himself, and so he could think about, you know, what kind of effect it would be having on you if you were like, you know, forced to interact with these games where you never see yourself as number one, the hero. You always see yourself as
a disposable body.
a disposable body, like not human.
The enemy.
The enemy of the state. Literally, yeah.
Yeah, literally the enemy. But then also like your female counterparts are there to be also used in a similar kind of way. It's obviously going to have an effect on self-esteem. It's obviously going to, have a lasting impact on how you see yourself. And, you know, not to mention how these stereotypes that we talked about again are just like being reinforced and ingrained in the psyches of whomever who's not Vietnamese is playing these games. And it's kind of, it's horrific when you really like break it down.
And just to like to that point, it's really interesting because as like a person of color growing up in the world that we have, we're never, or up until recently, it's only until now that we are the main character. Let's face it. And like, I like in my line of work, I feel like it's so important to like, have, you know, people of color represented, especially in like places or positions they might not have been like traditionally, because also like what are the younger generation and younger children, like they're gonna then aspire to that, like aspire to become like astronauts or like painters or like, I don't know, like, you know, all the above. And I think it's just so important to have that visual representation that is beyond.
But then it's like, were there any Vietnamese or even Asian people in that video game development lab?
Yeah,
probably not. Because if there were and we had that representation, then probably someone would have been like, quick one. Were there women?
Exactly.
I mean, they might have seen this, you know, and it's like, all of it stems from systems. And again, here we go, guys. Yeah, but
there's another layer to it, which is that, you know, even if you take a step back from the idea that like this was based on the Vietnam War, like my understanding from doing that research is that they could kind of like basically these games are so powerful because I don't know how to say this without being like offensive, but like
say it.
It's giving like underdeveloped society that cannot like even imagine that there's any different kind of Asian.
Like, wow, self-actualized, nuanced Asian.
Right.
All of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, that Asian is all Asians.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So like, it's not just something that is being planted in the mind of people in regards to Vietnamese men or Vietnamese women. It's literally all East Asian men and women.
I've seen this in ads on TV as well. Like, for example, if it's like a Boots ad, there's always like a white woman, a black woman, and it's either a South Asian woman or an East Asian woman. So there's either like an Indian, and we're like interchangeable.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, great. Love this for us.
How has the mixed race individual shifted in recent times versus how they were typically presented in media before?
And is this demonstrated in your upcoming children's book, Emma? Mixed?
Okay, so we have to answer this question in several parts. I feel like this is a big question. I think like in our podcast, we've spoken to loads of actors and actresses, and something that always comes up or has always historically come up as being like this idea that, so there's a few things. One is that the mixed woman is always cast as the best friend.
Yeah. She's always mixed black and white.
Yeah. They're always mixed black and white because otherwise are they really mixed?
Mixed, yeah.
Awesome.
Just to be clear, that's obviously a joke. There's that. And then they can't be like the lead character. They are always like the best friend supporting the white lead heroine and love interest. Then, and some people have expressed like literally being talked about in their reads. Like, so they're just reading and what we call casting directors are like, I just don't see it for the lead character, even though they're auditioning for the lead character. Much more of a best friend vibe. Yeah. Then other people have experienced situations where even though they are, for example, let's say like mixed.
Yeah, let's say it's calling for a mixed Asian character.
Okay, right.
Someone like, for example, I think it was Asia who gave us this example where she was like,
Gave us one.
and she came in and she was like, this is literally written for me. She's like, this is my entire life story. And they were just like, well, you look black, so this isn't going to work.
They were like, you're not Asian enough.
Yeah.
So
Likewise with Jassa, I think there was something that came out, I don't want to air his shit out, but there was something that came out recently that was, I think, a mixed Asian character. And the person that is cast, mixed South Asian, the person that is cast in the film is just a fully Asian person, fully South Asian person.
Because audiences just won't get it otherwise. They won't
Get it.
Yeah.
also a joke.
But you won't.
Cause so many people that we've spoken to over the years have expressed that. Hanako Footman as well is one of them. And she said like, that's been her biggest struggle as an actress, is wanting to be cast in Asian roles or mixed Asian roles, and people saying there's just no way, like she just looks too white to be.
I think it's so damaging to be constantly judged on this, like on face value.
Yeah.
I hate to bring up like my hair in this conversation because I always bring up my hair recently. When I cut my hair, my friend was just like,
you don't have to signal.
yeah, it's like not having to signal. And I just feel like maybe I did cut my hair to be perceived as more like queer.
Yeah.
But I think that's really like damaging because then you're like constantly like presenting and like kind of like doing the most when actually like you don't need to do the most. You're enough. Yeah. And that was, so maybe I did like cut my hair to look like appeal more queer to the audiences or whatever, or like the man passing down the street. But I think it is just like, it is so important to us to think beyond like the face value and like the perception, because it goes so much deeper than that. Oh, yeah. Just wanted to bring up my hair again.
We have time for your hair.
Yeah. And it looks great. I love it.
I think it's just really interesting because it's just really opened this internal dialogue within myself about like my hair and how I attach my femininity to my hair. Like honestly, and like
I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah.
And
I attach so many things to my hair. We don't have time.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now. Yes. That's,
oh, we should get Emma DeBerry on to talk about hair.
Yeah.
we had Emma on, but we talked about beauty in general, and that again is, it's a lot. Yeah. Incredible.
So before I interjected, going back to Emma and your upcoming book, Mixed, what inspired you to write about mixed heritage for younger readers?
To be honest, people just kept on asking me. Parents kept asking me. People kept asking at like our events, and teachers then started asking me, and then an editor asked me. So I was like, do you know what, babe?
Yeah.
I'm clearly called to this, so let me just get on with it. Let's do the work.
Yeah.
Obviously, you grapple with so many hyper complex concepts in the book, and you've been able to like tease out these conversations about mixed identity in the pod. How are you distilling that into very like, how are you healthily presenting that in a format that kids can resonate with?
Yeah, it's tough. It's still ongoing work. But to be honest, like, so there's two things here. First of all, I don't know if like, I don't know how, I'd be interested to hear this from all of you actually. But when I was growing up, I remember that one of the things that I really enjoyed was grappling with things, especially with books. I've always loved books. And I feel like the whole point of books is to stretch you. And so that you're supposed to be like stretching as you read, I think. And
So true.
so I'm trying not to treat the children like they're not
Made of glass.
capable.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like
They are.
Because I think that was, I mean, as someone who read a lot as a child, I think that was one of the biggest things for me was I hated when people didn't think that I could read and understand something that was outside of my reading level, for example. And so I think that's the best way to go about tackling a topic that feels big.
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound like a dick, but I tried to read, like, when I was younger, I tried to read Jane Austen when I was like 8 and 9, and I didn't understand it all, but I was like, just really enjoyed trying to understand it.
Yeah, exactly.
I read The Colour Purple when I was like 12.
Yeah.
It's not for me.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly.
Reading level.
I should put this one back on the shelf.
I was 8 or 9
for
when I
like
tried reading
10 years.
Why did I read that?
I was like, this is a lot of words.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
But you know what? That's like the fun of it, right? It's like, that is the magic of reading.
Yeah. Definitely.
But you know, there are other ways. Well, one thing that I've done is I've reached out to people, other mixed people of influence that I really respect or that have like done incredible things, and asked them to write a letter, to, as though they were a pen pal basically to the readers. But obviously like bearing in mind their younger self. So thinking about the things that they would have liked to know. And so I feel like that will help open it up in a way that's accessible and relatable, and that people will like really have something to kind of hang on to as they then grapple with the more complex bits. They can keep referring back and understand because they've got like someone's experience.
I'd have loved to read that as a kid, because I genuinely feel like children come out of the womb so happy and proud of who we are, and we understand all the things and all the complex parts of ourselves, and we just hold them. Because you're a kid, you're like, this is me. I love books and I love music, and like I'm my grandma's Filipino and my dad's Jamaican, and that's just me. And then it's when you get into maybe primary or secondary school or uni where the fist of like British institutions and like,
Well, there's a boot on your neck and you're like,
yeah, literally when the forms come in and you have to start ticking boxes or like reducing some essential part of yourself to fit into one group or another, when everything, you know, you're like stressed as a teenager, the adolescent era. So I feel like that will be a really valuable tool to like empower kids to retain that feeling of pride and excitement, and have the language to talk about it as they go through what is going to be a very challenging next set of years.
yeah, I hope so. But I'm interested to know from you all as well, like, because the thing I am struggling with is I do want to be real with my readers as much as possible. And I do believe that we kind of have to know like what's happened to understand like where we're going. And as we've discussed, there is no way of avoiding like, you know, knotty things.
Like, isn't that what like Bob Marley said? Without our past,
Basically, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've come from.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's verbatim, but like we have the essence of Bob with us.
Yeah,
always.
exactly.
So with the paperback release of the half of it coming out soon, What is something that you really hope readers will take away from the book itself?
Oh my gosh, this is always such a big question. It feels so hard because, yeah, like Emma said, it's something that we've worked on now for so many years. But I think the big takeaway for me is that you are, you're allowed to show up in all of the many different ways that you want to show up in, as a mixed person. I think one of the big things for us was that not only was it a book for the community, for the mixed community, but also for the people in our lives, for the people that know us, for the people that love us. And so that's another big thing for me, is that there is something in the book for everyone. There's something to take away that I think people may not have known before, conversations that, again, you may not have had with your parents or with yourself. So yeah, those are multiple answers, but but I think, yeah, the biggest one for me has always been that there's no wrong way to be a mixed person.
And it's also portable.
So easy to carry in a handbag.
Also light as a handbag.
She's pretty and she's light.
She's like, just as am I.
Apart from when I'm talking about colonization.
Not so light.
Colonization light for today. What was I going to say? Actually, Mel. So yeah, just to reverse it back to you. Obviously,
Okay, Missy.
Yeah.
and as a mixed person who is now exploring, talking, discussing heritage, in a way that must surely be having you do some kind of confronting,
Yeah.
some digging, some, some work. What did you take from the half of it that you think is interesting for our future readers of the paperback?
Wow. It's been a real journey doing Eastern Hunnies. And I've said this to Iz privately off camera, that it's something that I've always had in the back of my mind. Like, I know I'm mixed, but being in the UK, it's, again, to your point, it's like, oh, people look at me and they just think I'm black.
Yeah.
It's like people look at me and they'll just be like, oh, you're Asian.
Yeah.
Or like the way I grew up in the 90s British school system is they're just like, you're Asian. So I was like, cool, I'm just Filipino and that's that.
Yeah.
And then when I came into my teens, it was a very difficult time of grappling. Oh, I do have Spanish roots and lineage, and my mum's family is all there. They have Basque roots, and that was always commented on, and I was fetishized and all of these different things. But it was just swirling mess of feelings and things that were complex to talk about. And then moving to the Philippines in my early 20s was even more confronting, because there everyone is mixed to an extent. It's a very common thing, but it was spoken about in a completely different way. And with mixedness, there's also class implications and colonial bloodshed and all this stuff. And it was one of those things where I was like, I'm just gonna, you know what? Let's just pack this in a box and TBC. TBC. And again, it was a complete lack of resources to actually, I didn't know anyone to talk to about this apart from my mum, because she too is mixed Filipino who grew up in Oxford. So I think it's really hard to have this conversation with anyone who's not mixed Spanish Filipino, who didn't grow up in England, because it's a really specific thing for me. But yeah, coming to the podcast, Mixed It Up, and then the book, for the first time I was like, it's actually okay to have an incredibly messy and complex mixed identity. And it's very normal. And there are so many people who have even more complex layers of heritage with multiple mixes, multiple continents going on. And this is just an ongoing conversation. To that point, even, just not even your ancestry and your biological makeup, but also just the simple act of moving country has another implication for how you identify. So I think, like, for me, it taught me, like you said, Nicole, specificity is great. You don't have to conflate or diminish either part of your identity. Hyphenation is great. And you can say however you want to identify yourself at a time, and it might not be applicable in like 10 years. For me, now I'm like, the book taught me I can be like, oh, I am mixed Filipino Spanish, who's also British. And it's okay to have and this and that and this and that.
And that it's okay to exist outside binaries, whatever binaries they may be.
Exactly. And like, even just, you know, I used to have a really long name because my mum's feminist. She was like, we're double barreling. And it's also like a classic Filipino Spanish name. And I would always just be like, Melissa Legarda, Melissa Alcantara. It's easier. But now I'm like, oh, it's Melissa Legarda Alcantara. Like, that's actually my name. But I think it's just really freeing after like experiencing so many stories of mixedness to actually just be like, I'm going to exist in my wholeness and not like have to accommodate other people.
And that's the tea.
Like,
so you've literally given the answer.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah, basically, I think, and this is really important for this next book that I'm writing as well. It's like this idea that we get to be whole and we get to identify however we want to identify. And that's fine. You know, it's not disingenuous. It's not, you know, some kind of fakery. And actually, the journey of identity might be your whole life. You might be on that journey your whole life. And in that journey, you might be, I know, right? Whoa. It's going to be intense. Everybody, have you got your ticket?
No. I haven't.
You just got no.
But yeah, so it's just like, it's okay to flex in that. And it doesn't matter how many times you flex on that journey. It's your prerogative. It's up to you. And it's valid. And that's fine. And I think, you know, what I found really helpful, and I think, you know, you'd say the same, is doing all that investigation on like the history of mixed people across the world. Like, obviously we've spoken to hundreds of people from everywhere. And it's actually really helpful to identify, like, for you yourself to kind of feel sturdy in the way you identify yourself, just hearing other people's stories. Like, you know, who would think, speaking to South African people who literally term themselves in a way that feels like quite alien for people in the UK, like, or people in America. Like, who would have known that speaking to them about their journey and like how they understand themselves and all of their history and like what's gone into that, and like categorization in South Africa, and like, you know, everything that's wrapped up in this kind of painful history of apartheid, and all of these things that actually I haven't experienced would help me in my journey of identity. And I think also like this idea that mixed people shouldn't talk about their
experiences.
Because
well, they're not enough.
They don't matter because they are not as oppressed as whomever else.
All their experiences inherently harmful to the other communities they belong to.
Or that they are so privileged that they should just be quiet is so wrong and so harmful to everybody. Like, it's so harmful to everybody. Like, if I didn't go on this journey, I wouldn't know so many things that I now know about East Asian history and experiences, you know, whether that be Vietnamese or whether that be Chinese or like, you know, or like the Hakka people. Like, I literally have so much information that has like blown my mind and my world right open, that has like just informed me as a person. And if I didn't start to dig into the mixed experience, I wouldn't have any of that.
What a gift.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Like, so much of this conversation can be like applicable to like gender identity as well.
Even you being like, I don't have to present. It's optics versus like, I am they, I am she, I am he.
And I think we felt so connected to that as well whilst writing the book, and even speaking to people like Travis Albanza, for example, who like so generously was just like, sharing all of their gold like with us in terms of gender and race. Because there are so many connections, so many touch points there.
And I feel like maybe it's just we are messy, we exist in multitudes, and it's only unfortunately because of the structures and frameworks that we find ourselves in is why we are in this period of the world. And I honestly I really commend you both for your work in like making the world a better place.
Thank you. So I'm so proud of you both for your podcast, and how it's not just a sensation, it's like so needed. And it's just it's both enjoyable and fascinating, and I think that having that combination is really difficult.
It's come at just the right time. It came just, I feel like, like you were saying, it was so needed. And then all of a sudden when you asked me to come on, I was like, oh, no one asks me to do these kinds of things. So exactly. I was like, I'm Asian today. But
you're Asian every day.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
But truly it means a lot. It means a lot to be able to be seen in this way. So thank you so much.
We'll close. It's like my favorite part of the episode. But if you were to write a love letter to diaspora, what would you say, Emma and Nicole?
Oh my gosh. I don't remember what I said last time. Wow. I need to remember what to think.
I think I would say keep exploring and keep digging, even when it seems like it's painful initially. I truly believe that the more we know, to your point earlier, the more we can do and the further we can go. And actually, eventually, the more whole and happy we feel. And I think, it is incumbent on us to do our own investigation into ourselves, into our cultural histories, into, especially the experiences that our parents have gone through in order to understand ourselves, and also just to have more compassion for them. And I think that those things only bring great things in the end.
Love that.
I wrote something recently for my Substack, actually, that I feel has nothing to do with the diaspora specifically, but it reminded me of this, which is essentially, I was writing thinking, wow, everything that I learned about everything that I learned about romance, I felt like I learned from white men. And it kind of really freaked me out. And like, I felt like there was something like wrong with me, because I was just like, this shouldn't be my experience. But then under further interrogation, I felt like everything that I learned about love, I learned from the women in my life, my matriarchal line, likewise my parents. And so I feel like my love letter to the diaspora in this particular situation is going out to them, is going out to the examples of love that I want to be in the world. I learned from the two of them. So
love. Also, just bringing up white men at the very end. Well done.
I had to bring it back to Mary.
I just want to note that, like, it's crazy. We grow up with so many like beautiful interracial marriages, or like our own parents having these cultural unions in the home. But just by virtue of where we are, it's like, oh, I want to, like, you subscribe to like the white boy default, as we call it. It's just
Yeah.
Fascinating. Please let the internet know where they can find you, talking to this camera over here.
Well, you can find Mixed Up on anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the works. You can find a copy of the half of it in all good bookstores. You can follow us on Instagram. We are at mixedup.podcast. You can follow me as well on Instagram, and I'm at Nicole Okran. And
I'm at M. Slade Edmondson.
And I think that's it.
Yay! Thank you so much both for coming on. Like, we really appreciate the effort. You guys are such a big inspiration to us, to me as a mixed individual. And just having seen the impact you guys leave behind, you know, like together and individually is just such a blessing to have you in our orbits.
Honestly.
So thank you.
Oh my gosh, likewise. Thank you both so much.
It's been such a joy to come on.
Thank you to our audience for listening and watching to this episode of Eastern Hunnies. Honestly, such a dream and a pleasure to have these women come on this ep. We hope you learned a lot from race, identity, gender, all the above. Like, it was again, RIP, our sound mixer and editor. But like, honestly, please share this to your friend, your mom, and your uncle, because there's so much good stuff in here. And every share, like, and subscribe changes the world, baby. Let's continue to have these conversations, because listening is important. And on that note, we shall see you on the next episode. Maraming salamat.
Bye.